Welcome to Grow My Etsy Shop podcast, the drips of knowledge you need to start growing. Hey, welcome. So if you are watching this on YouTube, you're going to notice something a little different. You can actually see me. I'm recording myself speaking. If you are listening to this on the podcast, nothing's going to change. It's the exact same thing. So this week I received a voicemail from that voice caller thing I have that you can call in and leave a voicemail. I'll put it in the description if you want to make a call because it's helpful for me to be able to hear the type of questions that people have just as listeners and to be able to address those questions. So I'm going to be going through a voicemail that I received. There's actually lots of different talking points within the voicemail that I want to address. So I'm going to be kind of pausing it as we go and we'll dive deep into some of the subjects that she's bringing up. Okay, let's start this voicemail out.
Hey, Jared, it's Vanessa from North Carolina. We've talked before. I'm an artist, and I make prints of nature, wildlife art, and I'm a fairly new store. I have 65 or 69 sales, something like that. But
okay, she's right. A new store. So strategies change as you get further down the line because you can only make decisions when you're a new store based on what's in your noggin and the research that you've done. As you get further down, you get concrete data of what is working and what isn't working. And so you're sort of at that stage where you may feel like you're throwing spaghetti against the wall, and it's because you're supposed to be throwing spaghetti against the wall. This is your time to say, hey, I think I have an idea. Let's go bring it out and see if it works. If you listen to my podcast, you'll see I do this all the time. In fact, if you're watching YouTube, you're looking at me right now. Why? Because I'm trying something new. We're going to do it. We're going to see if we like it. We're going to see if other people like it. If it's not that big of a deal, it doesn't make it great. We'll go back to the old-fashioned way. I just am throwing spaghetti against the wall. And that's what your mentality is when you're a new shop. You're doing something very similar. So let's see how this works out for her.
I'm struggling with ads. I had been running ads, and since I sell the same product, it's all, prints of different birds or animals. It seemed like if I did 3 products, for example, it's like almost all of the money would go to one. So I started with 20, or maybe I did $10 for one ad, and then I think I did 20 for 2 or 3. But what's happening now is I'm getting a lot of views, but I'm not.
Okay, seems like she's about to transition somewhere. So let's start with this. She said, she sells prints of animals. So she's like, realistically, I'm sort of targeting the same person with all my ads. Like whether they want a cardinal or a blue jay or some sort of other bird or animal or whatever, like I'm targeting people who have those prints. So the first thing you kind of want to think about in this scenario is like, how can I make these listings different? And a good way to do it is to say like, hey, I know that people who make nurseries, for example, they might want to have a bird-themed nursery. And so I'm going to create a listing that's dedicated to nurseries that has my birds. And they're going to be able to select which bird they want for their nursery to be hung up above their baby's crib or whatever. And now you have something that is still a bird print, but you're speaking to a specific person and showing your product to that specific person. And so that makes it a little bit different. It allows keywords to start reaching a different way and allows you to do what we're talking about before, which is just dabble and see if something takes off for you. And so you feel like instead of just like I'm throwing something up and I'm crossing my fingers and I'm hoping it sells, you're instead saying, well, look, I'm going to see if I can get the nursery people to buy into this. And you can do the same thing with kitchen decor or people hang, what is it? All of our moms did it. The chicken, they put the chicken up. Like you just kind of find what it is that I think I can place this under and go in that direction. So that's probably where I would start with that. Yeah, it's probably where I would start with that. But let's also take another step back. She said, hey, I did one listing for $10. And then when I dropped in my other 2 listings, I put it up to 20, which is the right strategy, but it still spent all the money to the one. Now, if you have 3 and they are very similar, you're pretty much getting data when it's getting sent to the one. If the one isn't converting, then you would turn that one off and force the spend to the other 2. My guess is, though, you're going to see the exact same type of numbers that you're seeing already to the one because the product is so similar. So if the product isn't converting, it's not likely that the other ones are going to convert unless they're very different, right? But if they're like, hey, this one's a pigeon, who would ever paint a pigeon? This one's a pigeon, this one's a seagull, two worst birds on the planet. You might be able to land the seagull to a beach house. So if you target a beach house and then you're having beach house decor, Airbnb type stuff, you might be able to land that way. But if it's just someone searching for a bird print or nature print or whatever, that the data will probably be super similar. Okay, let's keep going.
I'm getting a lot of views, but I'm not selling, and I have a good click-through rate, but not a good conversion rate. Whereas before, maybe 6 months ago, I did, and I haven't changed anything.
So that's a strange one, but let's break it down together. So if you have a high click-through rate, now what is a high click-through rate, right? So when she says that could be subjective unless she kind of knows. So a high click-through rate, over 1.4. 1.4 is my bare minimum on ads that I would feel comfortable having on. So if she has a 2 click-through rate, that's pretty high for cold. But she then says, but I'm not converting. So what's the first thing we do? We're going to jump in to make sure we're sending the correct traffic to our listing. So a high click-through rate doesn't always mean it's the best traffic. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the words that are associated with that ad set. And if they're very generic, for example, if they're very like art, prints, nature prints, let's just say she mentioned some of her prints might be nature, so that would fit. But if it's the bird and it's nature prints, we would start to lock in more on less inspirational keywords and more detailed keywords, more keywords that are very specific to what she is selling. That is going to bring the highest converting traffic, and we would only pay for the highest converting traffic during this scenario. And if your conversion rate from there is still low, that's when we focus on the conversion rate of your listing. We look at the listing itself. So there's 2 different ways to do this. Okay. Number 1, you can either go in and turn off the inspirational keywords and force it to only spend on detailed keywords and then cross your fingers and hope that starts selling. Or you can look at the keywords, and if they're like, for example, someone's searching for nursery art, and you're like, oh, I guess my bird print could be nursery. What you would do is you would go in and you would make that listing really speak towards the nursery shopper. So show it in a baby's thing, break it all down, maybe even make it a little bit more woodland creature looking so that it really fits that kind of nursery vibe, and place that into your shop, or change the listing so that it focuses more on that, and then continue to run those ads. As you get those nursery clicks, you would hope that now you're speaking more to the buyer. So you essentially can go 2 different directions. One is force the listing to find your specific buyer, or 2, match the buyer that you believe is coming in. And if you do those 2 things and neither of them are working for you, that's the sign of like, we got to pivot. Because sometimes people like to look at pretty things, especially in the art scenario. Jewelry is another one of this. They just like looking at pretty things, but it isn't pressing enough for them that they want to make that purchase. Usually the last piece of advice I give in that is like, put it on sale. So once you do all that and it's still not going, put it on sale and see if you can give it away. And if you're having a hard time, because people might look at your art and say, it's pretty, that's so nice, I love it. And you're like, great, do you want to hang it in their house? And they're like, no. And you're like, oh, he told me it was pretty, but you don't want to hang it up. That's what we learn when we start to put things on sale, to see if we can start generating those sales. All right, let's keep going with this.
So I'm wondering if maybe it's just because I don't have any sales as a new store. Does it make sense to drop the price a lot? I think I remember you saying, drop the price on like your best-selling product until you have at least 100 sales, like break even. Not exactly, but something along those lines. I'm just wondering what the next thing to try would be, because I'm disappointed with the results. My pictures are nice, like I don't think it's overpriced. My feedback is all like 5 stars, really positive. I have a lot of great reviews. So I'm stuck. Thank you, Jared. Bye.
Okay. That was great. So you could see where she missed though. So what we don't do is we don't say, my product isn't selling. I'll gash the price. We say, am I driving the right person to this listing? And once I have the right person to this listing, am I presenting the listing correctly to them? And once we do those two things, that's when we can start to feel pretty confident of like, that's why I love Etsy ads so much, is that it doesn't, if you just look at the statistics on Etsy, it tells you the traffic that's coming in through the clicks that you're receiving. So you're able to see like, oh, I'm being found under this. But if you go into Etsy ads, you're going to start to see what Etsy thinks you sell and who they're pushing you towards. And that's more data. So you're not necessarily, when you're paying for ads or paying for sales when you start, you're paying to get the data of who does Etsy think I'm selling to? And then you can start to manipulate your listings to make that happen. So what I would do in her scenario, and again, this is kind of coming off without looking at the store as a whole, is I would try to place a listing that could offer different versions of the same type of thing. So birds, for example, I would try to make the shopping experience come into my listing. So if someone was searching for bird prints or bird art or something along the lines of that, I would want them to see my listing, and I would have all the different versions of birds that I've drawn up there that they can see in one listing, that they would go, oh, click, and now they're in my listing, and I could present them all my birds and allow them to choose the bird that they want. This creates it allows them to shop in your listing. So we know what they want when they're searching for bird prints. They want to shop for bird prints. So create a place for them to do that. So this is a way that if you have a lot of the same thing, you can sort of use that to your advantage by saying, hey, I'm offering this. You can then offer freebies in there. You can say, hey, it's buy one, get one free. Like you can do the whole thing within that experience because you have that advantage over your competitors. Then I'd feel more comfortable running ads to it because I would know, hey, if someone's searching for bird prints and they see this listing, this is a great listing for them. I have a buy one, get one free that's connected to it. So that's a good way to not drop your prices. If it's, I believe your art is digital. I don't think it's original. I don't think you're painting it every time, right? I think you have a digital. So if that's the case, you could do a buy one, get one free on those scenarios. So now they're getting two and you're not having to lower your price in that. The times we would really like to lower our price is when we feel like we're getting the right traffic, but not getting the clicks. That's usually picture or price. If they're clicking, that means there's an interest that's there. And if you're getting a high click-through rate, there's an interest that's there. And so I have a hard time believing it's price-oriented. Maybe it's just not being presented correctly. Hard to know without looking, though. Okay. Thank you, Vanessa. Great question. If you guys have a question, you can submit it. I'm happy to go through and share some stuff. I will share this with you just as kind of a closing thought. I believe that 2024, what we're doing, and when I'm at this point, I've worked with obviously a lot of Etsy shops, but a lot of high successful Etsy shops, and just in my e-com experience and in my marketing experience and my growth marketing, like everything comes down to like, if I was to go to a conference right now and speak and I got to choose my subject, I would choose simplicity in checkout. That would be the subject I would talk about. I am getting more and more passionate about it. Is really, really tempting to say, look at all that I offer. Look at this, look at this, look at this. I'm better than my competitors because I offer XYZ, XYZ. And that there isn't anything wrong about thinking that way when it comes to Etsy, because if you're in a really saturated, heavy competitive market, it works that way. So think of it like you have a line of people all selling right next to each other. So someone comes over and gets taught or indoctrinated about a certain product and they're like, oh, I really like this. Then you want to be able to say to that person, oh, we have it for cheaper over here. Or, hey, we got buy one, get one over here. Or, hey, we actually have more color options over here. Or, hey, we can customize the chain length over here. Like you can try to win people over by saying, hey, you already know what you want. You've had so many people offer you what it is. Let me offer you something new. Something different, a different experience. And that can work. But what happens is, and this is where our mind can get in the way of this, is that when we get stagnant or we get stuck, we think that's what I need to do. I just need to complicate my listings, and then people will want to buy from you. If only I offered purple. If I offered a purple, that's what will make people buy from me. And I just am, the more and more I get into data, the more and more I look at this, the more and more I work with big brands, I can see they are masters of simplifying checkout. That's what they're good at. They're good at telling you what it is that you want. So that's going to be my parting note with you, as we kind of been just discussing conversion rates in general, is simplify what you can do. And so I'm currently working with someone right now who they offer a lot of customization in what they do. Lots of customization. And on Etsy, it's the way that they create new listings, because they're like, hey, if we change the shape of it, we can now create new listings. And that's all the right thinking. It's just that we're now transitioning this person onto a website, and they're going to be running Google ads to the website, which means all we're doing is putting, this is what I keep saying to this individual. I keep saying, every time you're asking them to make a decision, you're pretty much saying to them, you can't give us your money till you give us an answer. So they can be like, oh, I know what I want. And now they're having to jump through these hoops. Hey, do you want this? Do you want it this size? Do you want it this? What size do you want it? How big is it? Do you want it this shape or this shape? How long do you want it? Like, dog, I don't know. Sometimes a question just isn't that big of a deal. And so if you simplify it and say, look, and so you've heard me say this before, sometimes it's just by saying, this is our most popular. Here's your options. Here's the most popular. That's a good way, a really great way to let people who don't really care, or just like, yeah, I don't know, I'm 50-50, or man, that's a good question. I don't know if I should get that one or that one. That there's social proof that says, well, this is our most popular one. And they'll go, oh, okay, well, if the most people like that, I'm 50-50, I'll go that direction. So simplify your checkouts, but then of course what we learned today, which is let's look at our who's coming in and create listings that speak to that person. Okay, until next week, see ya.